week, we're on location at Lakeland Linder International Airport at the Airport Operations Center for the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. This is where the Hurricane Hunter fleet is stored. There's 10 aircraft here, and they go out all over the Caribbean, all over the ocean to look for hurricanes, and they fly right into the eye of the storm. Really exciting stuff happening right here in Lakeland. I'm joined today by County Commissioner Becky Troutman, as well as Captain Kahn, who is the commanding officer here at the AOC. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. Captain Kahn, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about the decision to move to Lakeland and when you came here and what you brought over?
Okay, so my career started with NOAA in 2015 when I transferred my commission from the Navy, and we were currently stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. We were working out of hangar number 5 there, and I'd been there for about 2 years when we received a notice from the Air Force that due to some fleet restructuring, squadron moving, reposition of aircraft and assets, that they needed that hangar back for Air Force needs. So NOAA we found ourselves in a unique position of needing to find a home. And at that time, we had probably 100 federal employees and 30 or 40 NOAA Corps officers working at that time. The NOAA Corps officers, we would be paid to move no matter what, but those federal employees may or may not, if we'd moved any specific distance, may or may not have been able to stay with the center. And their workforce is highly specialized. At that point in time, most of our employees probably had 10, 15, 20, some 30 and 40 years of experience in the field. So it was really, really important for us as an agency to try to maintain that experience level, to maintain the sanctity of that workforce. So as we started to try to find a new home, we looked at what were our options within 50 miles of MacDill Air Force Base where we had a runway that was long enough and wide enough to support our fleet, and what were the options basically for us. And we looked at Sarasota. They didn't return our phone call.
Wow.
Tampa International told us they didn't have anything available for us. And St. Pete Clearwater had a potential site where we could have maybe worked into an older hangar. And Lakeland Linder, not only did they receive our phone call, but they rolled out the red carpet. Lakeland, it was very clear, and all of the acquisition process for the new facility went through the federal structures and that whole process. But from the very beginning, it was clear that Lakeland Linder wanted us. Like, they wanted us to be here and work. And the airport's been nothing but a great partner ever since. And so it was almost, I want to say there was no competition, really. Like, we looked at all the options, and of those options, Polk County and Linder were the only place that really, really fought to have us here. So we've been nothing but pleased ever since.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me because we have such a great history and love of aviation here in Polk County. Just a couple weeks ago, we were over at Bartow Airport where they're pioneering remote digital towers. Really interesting technology being developed right here in Polk County. Commissioner Troutman, what does it mean to have a federal organization like NOAA here in Polk County? Not just for the residents who might be employed by NOAA, but to have that resource here and that partnership here.
Well, the resource is important because we are all affected when there's a natural disaster, specifically a hurricane. We all can remember, most of us, being crisscrossed if it came on the East Coast or the West Coast. Oftentimes Polk is affected. So to be able to have this resource right here in Lakeland, in Polk County, is vital to our overall well-being.
Absolutely. And of course, with any federal partnership, there's jobs in the area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He mentioned the numbers when they started, and today I believe there are around 280 total, with 200 federal employees and about 80 commissioned officers that call this place home for their work.
Absolutely.
And plans to grow as our fleet increases.
That's awesome.
And let's talk about your fleet. 10 aircraft. Now, I know 2 of them go into the eye of the storm. Talk a little bit about what you do when we see all this dramatic footage, but talk about what the purpose is of going out and why you're going out and what you're doing with those
Sure.
planes.
Well, first of all, welcome to the eye of Hurricane Milton.
Right.
The photo in the background here is, in fact, from Milton last year. And our missions vary. So we have 10 total aircraft. Really, only 3 of them are involved in the hurricane mission. We have a high-altitude jet, currently a Gulfstream 4, that is used for synoptic surveillance above and around the hurricanes, because hurricanes aren't driven by what's under them, they're driven by what's around them. So we have an airplane specifically for studying that. The 2 P3s with the engines you can see here, those are designed to go directly into a hurricane, right to the heart of the matter, as it were. The reason that's so important is that the key to a hurricane forecast is the center of circulation. And you wouldn't, normally I would think if you looked at a picture of an eye on radar that, well, the center is obviously right in the middle, right?
Right.
But that isn't the case. Like where the winds actually rotate can be tucked up against the eye, it can be off in a corner, it can really kind of be anywhere in there. Having that very precise point of circulation for the forecaster to start their plans from really makes a difference. And you see that in the hurricane forecast before aircraft hit the storm and after. And there's usually, after the first mission, a very dramatic snap in the forecast that then makes any subsequent changes very small in magnitude, just based on identifying that specific center of rotation. So those two airplanes do that mission. And then we have a fleet of what we call our light aircraft that do marine mammal surveys, they do snowpack moisture content evaluation for flood prediction, and a lot of coastal mapping. So, for example, we're constantly taking imagery up and down the coast to prepare for pre-imagery and then post-damage assessments. When Milton and Helene came through last year and were hugely impactful to the coastline over in the Tampa Bay area, we had imagery taken earlier that year, so we knew what the baseline was, and then our planes within a week, I think it was within 2 or 3 weeks of Milton finally coming through, they had mapped basically every square mile from Fort Myers to all the way up into North Carolina, up into Asheville.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to touch on too, is that the missions that you guys carry out and the things that you do here, they don't just impact Polk County, they impact the entire country.
Yeah.
And so what once that storm is spotted on the horizon, once you log onto the Hurricane Center website and you see 10% development in the next 7 days, and then it grows, when do you start going out? When does the activity ramp up? Talk to me a little bit about how a normal, with Hurricane Milton, for example.
We're tasked by the National Hurricane Center, based out of Miami, and when they want us to go, we go. Is kind of how that works. Typically, what they're looking at are the forecast models, where they think development is going to occur. Milton was a really interesting storm because when we first started flying on it, there was nothing there but a few random thunderstorms. And the forecasters were looking at their models, they were looking at the environmental data around there, and they knew. I swear, forecasting, some of this has a little bit of gut instinct to it, but they thought this is going to be bigger than it looks right now, and they sent us. And the first mission, they were like, yeah, there's nothing out here but a bunch of clouds. The next mission, there was a tropical storm. The next mission, so we're talking about between 6 and 12 hours. So a bunch of clouds, random thunderstorms, moderate tropical storm, hurricane, major hurricane. Over the course of just a 24-hour period, Milton blew up into the monster that it was. And our forecasters knew or guessed, whatever. I guess now we can say that they knew because it turned out that way, but they knew there was going to be something there, and they sent us. Milton was kind of a unique case because it formed in the Gulf, very close to us, so we didn't have a lot of time for it to spin up and grow. Generally what occurs, especially with the ocean crossing storm systems that come off of Africa, is the forecasters will be watching the satellite pictures, they'll be seeing something that looks good for development, and they'll reposition us early to Barbados or St. Croix, one of the islands on the leeward side of the Caribbean, so that we can reach it while it's out in the Atlantic, and we can start tracking the storm before we really know where the landfall is going to be. And in some cases, we'll follow that storm all the way from the Caribbean back up to landfall in the U.S. I personally flew on Irma. We started catching that storm out of St. Croix when it was a tropical storm. This was in 2017, and we flew it all the way up. We flew it for 6 days. We have a duty cycle where we fly for 6 days. We have to take a day off. So we flew 5 days worth of missions, flew home on day 6, took a day off. I boarded up my house in South Tampa at the time, came right back to work, flying that storm. And conveniently, I evacuated to Lakeland that year because I lived in Tampa at the time, and the storm followed me to Lakeland.
I imagine your neighbors, if they see your boards going up, that they know that they should take notice.
Yeah, you'd like to think. One of the problems I saw in Tampa in my neighborhood was, and I told them this, if you guys see me packing up, you should probably get out of here. But folks who have lived through too many storms tend to think that one storm is just like the next, and that's just not the case. So you might be lucky one year. It only takes 1 year of not being lucky to wipe everything away. So
absolutely,
my tagline was always guys, you're rolling the dice, and if I were you, I'd get in your car and leave. That's why I'm getting in my car and leaving.
Yeah, be prepared.
It's always better to be prepared than be sorry. Yeah. On that topic, do you have any advice potentially for residents? Anything that you wish more people knew that maybe you see not being common knowledge?
So the first and most important thing for us that we take away is that where hurricanes are concerned, if your emergency managers ask you to evacuate, please do what they say. Like, please, if you live in a mandatory evacuation zone and an evacuation order is issued, please comply with that order. That's why my team, my crews, that's why they put themselves at risk. That's why they go out and gather this data in a place that is really, really dangerous. We don't do it for thrills. Like, we do it because the data is important to make those decisions and keep other people safe. So if you're instructed to evacuate, please do. Polk County doesn't have mandatory evacuation zones. We're in the middle of Florida, like we're central Florida at this point, where our elevation is a little bit higher. But that doesn't mean we don't have places that are high risk. If you live in a mobile home and you think a hurricane's coming anywhere near you, please evacuate that mobile home. You know, if you live in a low-lying area, if you live right on the lake shore and you know it's prone to flooding, use a little common sense and apply that and try to get to a place where you know you're going to be safe. We deal with, like, my house here in Lakeland is kind of tucked into a hill. It's very, very secure. We discovered in Milton last year that, like, we're in a really, really good spot. High enough, like water runoff, no flooding kind of concerns. But I have crew here who lived right on Lake Bonnie, and his house was he was flying in Milton, was in, I believe they evacuated, at that point they were in either Tallahassee or I'm not sure what city they were in, up in the Panhandle and into those states, but they had evacuated. He was hearing from his neighbors that everything was underwater, and then he had to fly home, land, put the airplane away, and go deal with the fact that his house was under 3 feet of water. Like, so our folks are doing a really, really dangerous work. They're leaving their homes, their families, their situations to try to gather the data. So the one thing I would ask is, take advantage of it. Like, don't let our sacrifice be noise on the news. Like, take advantage of what you learn and keep yourself safe.
Absolutely. Well, we certainly thank you and everybody here for all that you do for the Polk County community, for the Florida community, and for the country.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And if our residents have the desire to learn more about what they can do in Polk County for hurricane preparedness, you want to go to polk-county.net. Check out the emergency management site. That's where we have all of our advice on where shelters are, how to sign up for safe shelters, how to find sandbags when it comes time to distribute those. Polk-county.net, that's the best place to go for your local resources. Well, Commissioner Troutman, do you have any other questions for Captain Kahn?
I do. I want to know, how did you get into the field? What education requirements and paths did you take that led you to your career today?
So there's kind of two separate paths. I'm a uniform service commissioned officer with the NOAA Corps, and then we also have federal employees. So for those who want to be scientists, those who want to be engineers, those who don't want to wear a uniform and serve, go through your normal college processes, right? Like, go get your advanced degrees and look for internships with NOAA. Like, we offer internships for people all of the time. So there's a federal employee path into service within this community. And if you are interested in a life of service, if you want to be a pilot, if you want to drive ships, the NOAA Commissioned Corps is the path to take. And in that case, all of us have a minimum bachelor's degree that's required for acceptance into the Corps. And there's a STEM requirement for the number of credits you have. So everybody has to have, I believe it's 48 STEM credits within their degree. You can get a degree in whatever you'd like, but you have to take the right number of science and tech courses. Funny anecdote. I actually went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and I'm an English major. Like, I have a BS in English, which is the best degree ever, like, to have a BS in English.
Yes.
But because of all of the engineering, all of this, the math, all the courses I had to take as part of the Corps curriculum there, I got enough to qualify for the NOAA Corps.
Nice.
But we actually have officers who have gone back to school to take Meteorology 101 or, basic fundamental science and tech courses to flesh out their transcripts in order to meet our requirements.
The requirements. Wonderful. Thank you.
But
for
if you
sharing.
run a quick Google on NOAA Commissioned Corps, like, that will absolutely hook you up with recruiting and all of the requirements if folks are interested.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Fascinating stuff. Well, thank you so much. Very valuable information. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.